Thank y'all so much for being here. What's going on? If you are in here, hopefully you're in here for the right session. So as you can see on the screen, we have the leader or the middle manager playbook for leading through uncertainty. So that's what we'll be talking through today. We are so excited to be here with you all in this space. We have 60 minutes together. And so in that time, I just want to share with you all in advance, it's not just going to be us talking up here. We're going to ask y'all to be talking too. We want y'all to be talking to one another because we truly and literally believe that there is collective knowledge and collective ability for us to really lean in together and to talk through some of that uncertainty some of us might be facing at work and what to do about it. So strap in, because that's what you can anticipate today. All right, I got many things in my hand. I got a clicker, a pen, and some cards, so roll with me if you wouldn't mind. But first, like I said, we just wanted to welcome you and make sure that you are in the correct space, and even if you aren't, stick around, okay, because this is gonna be good. So let's dig into it and let's chat. We're gonna get to some introductions, but first we really wanna just set the scene, right? So like we said from that title, a lot of this session is really focused on middle managers and how they lead in times of uncertainty. And if I look across this room, I'd love to ask y'all, do y'all feel like we're living in moments of uncertainty? Yeah, I'm seeing nods of heads for sure. I'm feeling like these are some uncertain times. How about you all?
Absolutely.
No, for sure.
Yeah, we're in some uncertain times. And so when we say uncertainty, and particularly when we talk about the workplace, right? When we dig into what that uncertainty might look like, maybe some folks can just jump out, yell some things out that you might be dealing with when it comes to uncertainty at work. What's uncertain? Funding, yes, good one. Other folks? What was it? Acknowledgement? Oh, technology. Oh, yeah, that's feeling uncertain and moving at the same time at the speed of light. Absolutely. Other folks, what's uncertain for you? DEI is uncertain. Absolutely. We've heard a lot of chatter in the news. Yeah. How about layoffs? Yeah. How about the cost of groceries? That's just feeling uncertain in my life every week as we go to the grocery store. All that to say, there's a lot of uncertainty. There are a lot of things coming out of the socio-political space. If you think about levels of our government, from the executive, judicial, and the legislative branches, right down from the president's office to our government, or our local governors and our governments there, and then also thinking about even at the local level, everything around us quite frankly feels uncertain. And so we really wanted to equip folks who came to this session with a playbook, if you will. Now, granted, we got a little bit of time to do it. So maybe 3 main things that we can offer you all on how to navigate these times. And so that's just a little bit of situating and thinking about why we're here today. And then let's dig into who these folks are on this stage right now, right? And so I'd love for us to be able to introduce ourselves. And I'll kick it off. First, we're representing ADR Consulting Group. ADR Consulting Group is a workplace culture consulting firm. We've been in business for the last 6 years, and we're actually based outside of Houston in the Katy, Texas area with staff members all throughout our country. And for us particularly, we really have a heart for middle leaders. That's really where this session came from. Because after working with hundreds of clients, what we've observed in both the public and the private sectors is that middle managers find themselves in this middle position, right? We have the needs of our employees and our workforce, so those that we supervise. Then if you think about the clients or the customers that are on the front lines that we're serving, we're heeding to them as well. And then at the same time, we hold responsibility to be responsive and to perform the needs and the desires and the wishes of our upper management executives in the C-suite as well, right? So at the same time that our employees might be asking of us questions about how are we going to make it through this particular uncertain time, what is leadership saying? Leaders at the same time are like, make me $1, save me $1, prove you're innovative, right? And so we find that middle managers are under this level of pressure and expectation where they are overtaxed and overburdened. And that's really the work that we do at ADR Consulting Group. We want to help those middle management leaders through a couple of things. So we do a lot of executive coaching, workshop trainings, data-driven people analytics tools that we offer as well. And then we also do a lot of strategic planning work. And so this really is the nature of our work. And so I'm really excited to dig in on this topic. A little bit about who's here before you. So because I have the mic in my hand, I've been talking. My name is Alicia Rains, and I'm the CEO and lead strategist at ADR Consulting Group. And like I said, this really is my heart's work. And I'm really excited to be serving as a moderator for this exciting dialogue. I brought 2 of my colleagues here, and I would love if they would introduce themselves. So we'll kick it off with Keisha.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Keisha. I'm from the Austin area. So I am from here locally. Thank you. Oh, my gosh. Thank you. I am the data analyst, and so I will be your people and data-driven strategist today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor. I'm from the Chicago area, and cheers, absolutely. I am an associate consultant with ADR Consulting Group, and I'm your leadership and energy management expert today.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much. And so, with that being said, oh, look at there. There are our lovely pictures. So we've introduced ourselves. And we want to get into this topic right here, right? And we really want to get into learning a little bit more about what it takes to manage energy. Because when it comes down to uncertainty, it's really important that we're mindful of energy. And I'd love to share a little bit more about what I mean with that. And that's on my cue card. So I'm going to give it to Taylor. And before I do, I want to just ask, so Taylor, energy management has become a really critical leadership skill, especially when leading in times of uncertainty. And so for middle managers who are juggling multiple demands, how can they manage their own energy while also supporting their teams?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Right now, we know there's a number of emotional stressors being in place here in the workplace, and also thinking about your energy that fluctuates throughout the day because of how stress is impacting you. So there are a few practical ways that you might manage this. One way is practicing breathing and grounding exercises to both reduce reactivity and your stress. And this can be done solo or even with your team. Now, for example, there was an organization I supported at their team retreat, and I was able to kick off their day with a meditative session and a reflection on stress management. Now, afterwards, the team felt way more grounded, centered, and even open-minded for the collaboration that was going to happen throughout the rest of the day. And I want you all to experience this now before we get into the rest of our content. So I'll guide everyone through a very brief breathing and grounding practice. You can take a moment to get comfortable in your seats. You might root your feet on the ground as well to feel more stable. And you could even close your eyes if you feel comfortable or safe doing so. You might even lower your gaze to the ground. This is a few moments just for you, and you can listen to my voice here. The technique I'll guide you through is 4 counts of inhaling and 6 counts of exhaling while being aware of your breath. So take a few moments here to get comfortable, and then you might notice your natural breath. Just taking a few moments to acknowledge how you're naturally breathing. And then maybe on your next inhale, you breathe in for 4 counts on your own time, in your own way. And then on your exhale, release for 6 counts. Let's do that again. Inhaling for 4. And releasing for 6. One more time. Inhaling for 4. And releasing for 6 counts. You might continue to breathe like this on your own time, in your own way. And as you continue to inhale and exhale slowly, notice your feet, notice your legs, notice your hips, your belly, notice your chest, your arms, and notice your hands. Notice your shoulders, your back, your neck, and then notice your jaw, your cheeks. Notice your mouth, your nose, your eyes. And as you notice your eyebrows next, you might relax them. Relax your forehead. Notice the back of your body, the front of your body. Notice the right side of your body and the left side. And then you might notice your entire body together, from the soles of your feet to the top of your head. Just becoming aware of your entire body here and now. And then bring your awareness back to your breath. Taking one more inhale for 4 counts. And another slow exhale for 6. And then you might release the count of your breath. Coming back to your natural breath. And if your eyes are closed, open them towards the ground. And then bring your awareness back up into the space. Welcome back. I hope that was relaxing for a couple moments. Now, as you experienced here, that is a grounding practice, very quick, very brief, that you might do by yourself or even with your team. And I want to share a few pointers of why it is so important to manage your energy in that way, just for a moment, or even stress that might come up for you. Now, middle management leaders can set the emotional and operational tone of your teams. This is a fact. It comes with the role, it comes with the territory. So managing our energy really ensures consistency. It increases our capacity to problem solve and communicate clearly. It prevents burnout, which we know is very real. It builds empathy, not only for yourself, but for your team members. And it promotes resilience, your ability to overcome challenges and struggles in and out of the workplace. Now, there's been a ton of research on this, and one thing that we want you to all to walk away with is the fact that middle managers who prioritize self-care can see a 25% increase in engagement within their teams. So your self-care does not just impact you, it also impacts those around you positively. So there are a few practical ways you might manage your energy or stress with a bit of this self-awareness. You could do more breathing practices like the one I introduced, and that undoubtedly will reduce your stress and engagement in and out of the workplace. You could create clear boundaries by communicating your capacity to protect time and energy. That's easier said than done, but very important nonetheless. You might even explore physical activities in and out of the workplace, increasing your mind-body connection through walking, running, or yoga, for instance. And you could also engage your team in mindfulness practices. This can nurture a sense of shared stress management in the workplace and resilience for your team too. Now, I would love to give you all the chance to identify the ways that you might already be managing energy in your role. And this will include a bit of collaboration and engagement with each other. So you might turn to the person closest to you to share, how do you currently manage your energy as a mid-management leader or person within your team? So you might walk around if there isn't someone closest to you, but take a couple minutes here just to introduce yourself and share one way you manage your energy and stress. All right. Well, thank you all for taking that moment to be transparent with yourself, but also with another person. Hopefully you met someone new that you can connect with further throughout our time and even after. But the purpose here was for you to engage in that self-awareness practice, to acknowledge what energy you might be managing throughout your day and how you show up for your own self and care practices. So I'll pass it back to Alicia to move us along.
Thank you, Taylor. You know, as I was listening to Taylor, something that just really came up for me is sometimes, and far too often, I think with the how we conceptualize and define leadership, there's some assumptions there about how we are directing people and how we are kind of leading at people, but not really with people. And I think something that's really significant about the work that we do and how we do it is we're really centering ourselves. We have a mission where we're helping our leaders to understand how to lead with the humanity and dignity of people in mind. And so that's why, you know, you might sit down and be like, well, why are we doing this breathing exercise? Why are we talking about self-care and energy management? And like Taylor said, it's just such a significant aspect of really thinking about how can we not just figure out how to teach people how to work harder and be more productive and do more labor, but really speaking to, again, that humanity and the dignity aspect, because Whether in uncertainty or just in life in general, it's just really important that we exercise a level of care for the people that we're working alongside. And that's just really something that's significant for us. So thanks for leading us in that way, Taylor.
Of course.
And so, the title of our session, it does say that there's going to be a playbook here, right? And so we certainly don't want to negate that, and we want to get to that aspect. And so just really grounding ourselves a little bit more and kind of why it's so important to pay attention to uncertainty and what could happen should we fail to meet the moment of how to lead in uncertain times. We wanted to share a bit of an example. So roll with me. And like I said, so we discussed a lot of the challenges that middle managers face, and you all named a lot of them, right? Thinking about navigating shifting policies, thinking about evolving workforce expectations that are happening. All of these things are increasing uncertainty. But what happens, right, when we as middle managers or those who are proximate to middle managers, if you're not one yourself, but what happens when we fail to meet the moment, like I shared? Well, I'll give you a case study. And so in 2020, globally, right, what was happening at that time? A pandemic, yeah. And I mean, whatever corner of the earth you were on, you were impacted by that global pandemic, right? And so in that moment, a lot of companies were facing a lot of pressure to make choices and make a lot of quick decisions because if you remember that word, those were unprecedented times. Oh. Do y'all remember that word? Unprecedented. I have a joke and I'm like, well, the is still precedenting today. But alas, I want to give you a case study of maybe an organization and how they maneuvered through that change, right? And so in 2020, Microsoft, as an example, had faced, just like many other companies, a lot of challenges during that time as far as how to respond to the issues and the challenges and barriers that are coming up around the pandemic. In their response, they had an early response, and some of that was requiring folks to return back to the office pretty early, right? In those requirements, there was a lot of confusion. Hopefully no one works for Microsoft, and if you do, it's okay. It's just a case study. We're gonna keep rolling. But because of some of those early decisions and maybe some of that lacking of centering the humanity and dignity of their people that we're talking about, what happened? A lot of confusion, some disengagement, and ultimately a lot of business setbacks. And so what's really important here, we're just picking on one company for an example, but we see this happen even with our own clients or those who choose not to work alongside us. But there's a lot of pressure specifically on middle managers. And so if we think about some of those challenges that are happening within our global or even national context right now in the workplace, for our middle management leaders, they are right there in that vulnerable position where they're charged with being responsive, but at the same time needing response as well, right? They are kind of the ones who are left to pick up the pieces. They are the ones who are left and situated with emotional and physical labor. And so when you think about that example I just named of Microsoft, even as an example, really the case we want to make here is what's at stake is if we're not prepping and catering to the needs of our middle managers, we're not only going to miss out on the moment, we're not only going to cause more confusion, disengagement, but at the C-suite level, we're not meeting the needs of our business's bottom line there, right? And so if nothing else, right, when we think about leading through times of uncertainty, it's not just for fun, this isn't just a nice to have. It's if you're in business, if you want to stay in business, right, this is an imperative here, right? And so we use that example to share that. And so moving along, right, it's really important how to figure out how to lead in uncertain times or the business will falter, like I said. So right now, like I shared, we're in another moment of uncertainty with economic shifts, evolving workplace expectations, and global instability. I'm going to keep harping on those because I'm feeling them. I'm feeling those levels of uncertainty, so I'm going to say them more than once. And like I shared, middle managers have to take a people-focused, data-driven approach to supporting employees and aligning that support with business goals, right? That's going to be really important. So let's get into that playbook. And with that playbook, we have 3 strategies that we're really excited to share with you all. Just 3 strategies, because we didn't want to overwhelm you, but 3 strategies that we can offer to help you as a middle management leader or someone who's led by middle management leaders on how do you navigate uncertainty in a time like this. And so we're going to go ahead and get into that first strategy. And so I want to invite my colleague Keisha into the conversation. Keisha, middle managers are often struggling to make the case for employee investment because they lack the right data and sometimes the support they need. How can they use that data not just to track engagement, but to also drive meaningful change and strengthen business outcomes?
That's not heavy at all.
That's a lot.
Oh my gosh. So everybody like works with data. Data is not sexy. There's just absolutely nothing sexy about it. However, it is used as a tool to help enhance your company's initiatives, strengthening your partnerships with your employees, et cetera. And so middle managers are kind of responsible for doing that at an elevated level. So you have to make sure that you are meeting with your employees regularly. You're also having to make sure that you're meeting them regularly in order to stay in alignment with your company's strategies and strategic initiatives. And so what that might look like is collecting meaningful data. So when you're checking the pulse or checking the temp of your atmosphere, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And then going actually beyond those data points and having possibly not so nice conversations, but you have to go beneath the surface of as to asking, why is this occurring? How did this occur? And what am I as a manager, how am I able to intervene and mediate those circumstances, right? I'd also say with doing so, you're actually working on employee retention. And so you're able to align that with your company's initiatives and strategic plans as well. So when it comes down to it, the bottom line is, how do we make money, keep our employees happy, and minimize turnover? And so with that, you're just bridging. You are the bridge. And as much as we talk about the bottom line here, we also need to make sure middle managers are human. You have to be able to take care of yourself. Myself, I am big on boundaries. No is a complete sentence, and I really hope that you all utilize that for yourselves as well. And then I would just say that just
Go ahead and say
making sure that you understand your job is not the only thing that you do.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to have a life outside of that, and that's where no comes in. Those boundaries come in, and understanding that even though your job might say 8 to 5, you might be putting in 12 to 14 hours a day. But in those hours, how are you still taking moments, whether it be a brief 5-minute exercise or just going for a walk, making sure that you are keeping yourself grounded throughout the day?
I love that so much. So Keisha on our team is our data analyst. So certainly the one who's going to keep us grounded, but also making sure that we're capturing the right data and capturing meaningful data for our clients as well. And so I would say in our experience, we oftentimes when it comes to data see there might be an inkling for folks to kind of jump right into data. Like
Correct.
I said, we're navigating certain times of uncertainty. So you might want to just do a quick survey to your colleagues and your teammates, or you might want to do that quick focus group, whatever that quick thing is, right? And I think something I've certainly learned from Keisha, but intentional, don't laugh, it's true. But data, it's so important that we're being intentional with the kind of data that we're capturing,
Yes.
right? And so I think that's really a strong suit of the work that we do, because we want to ensure that we're also making good use of the data that we're collecting. So we see a lot of clients who say, we have annual surveys that we do, and then we'll ask them, well, how are you analyzing that data? And how are you disaggregating that data? And then what learnings have you found from that data? How have you used those learnings? How has that created any movement from maybe the last 2 years? And a lot of the times we get puzzled faces. And that's not necessarily to just kind of leave them in the state of awry, but it really is to just emphasize on the fact that data is to be used as a strategy.
Correct.
But you need to use it correctly. So, right, just like we said here, data can really be used to drive employee care and demonstrate that care if done correctly.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we often talk about amongst ourselves is when clients are asking questions, they're asking questions from a top perspective. They're not looking at it from as a systemic. So there's different levels and different parts to it, right? So asking how long you've been at a company versus like what keeps you at this particular company,
Yes.
what resources are being provided in this environment that makes you want to stay, besides a paycheck, because a paycheck is very nice.
Yeah.
But really, like, how am I able to individualize myself and bring my expertise to this role, and then have it a reciprocal response?
Absolutely. Yeah. And who is usually data left with to figure out and solve? The middle managers.
Correct.
Right? And so they need support. And that's just like the overarching theme here. So while data is relevant, important, it also usually falls on those middle managers who need support with the collection, analysis, and then what to do with it. And so it's important to just be strategic there. Thank you, Keisha. So certainly thinking about how we can leverage data to drive meaningful change. If we move along a bit, hold on, I want to get my question and not lose my question for you all. I done lost my question. Okay. Well, my next question was going to be about our next strategy. And so our next strategy here is, how does a middle manager communicate transparently and consistently build trust? And so I was going to pass it over to Taylor, and I had a cute way I was going to do that, but Taylor already knows I was giving this question to her. So with that regard, for a middle manager and thinking about this 3-step playbook that we're offering, how can communicating trust really, or communicating effectively, really help a middle manager to garner trust amongst their employees, and what can that do for the team?
Yeah, so this communication aspect is a really key contributor to humanizing yourself, but also your team. Yep. And you can do this in a few different ways. So first, you might want to prioritize early and frequent communication. And this might include sharing updates proactively, so before something happens or before an executive decision comes down, you might want to give your team members a heads up to prepare in some capacity. And this is another aspect of being transparent and honest, by acknowledging both the challenges that might be underway or reinforcing stability. And that's twofold there when being transparent. Mm-hmm. A third contributor here, or a strategy you could use for communication, is framing your communication about that trust building. So this could be in a way by aligning your messaging with leadership priorities, again, connecting the dots between what's being communicated at the executive level to a team member's particular role and skill set, or a task that they're working through, or a project that needs to be completed. And that can help build trust around the entire organization. And lastly, you might make communication a two-way street by creating open feedback loops. You want to make sure that your team members can respond to what you're sharing out, not just receiving the information. And that way, there's an open line of communication, and it increases collaboration, but also thought building with each other. So it's not just you sharing out and almost in a way commanding attention or commanding space, but rather making it so that everyone's voice can be heard and valued on changes that might need to be made. And those would be some strategies or tools you might pull out when communicating with your team.
Yeah. I appreciate that so much, because you know what, I can just see so many examples of stories from folks that we've worked alongside, and maybe you all have seen stories or even experienced stories like this. But when there are moments when, like we said, you might even go to the news or hear about some big change that's happening at work. Maybe it's a merger or an acquisition, or maybe, like I said, it's those layoffs happening, maybe that the company is closing, whatever it might be, right? In those moments, you're really looking for communication. Mm-hmm. We're really looking for, our middle managers are looking for their executives to share with them, how are we going to move forward from here? What's going to be our next step? Because guess what? As a middle manager, the folks that you supervise are also going to be expecting the same of you. And so what is so important that Taylor was just elaborating on is, not only should we communicate, which feels like rudimentary, but still needs to be said, but at the same time, communicating often, communicating early, and beyond just kind of being a good way to lead and manage, it also is something that's trust building. And that's what I heard you saying as well, Taylor. Mm-hmm. That's where we build the trust. And when it comes to how do you navigate a time of uncertainty within the workplace, trust is going to be huge, because I don't know about you all, but I have been that person who's like, oh, so some changes are coming down the pipeline. Let me start job searching, right? Let me go ahead and hit up Indeed.com. And so what you don't want to happen, I mean, that happens sometimes, but the point is you want to ensure that your workforce feels like they can trust you in moments of shifts and changes, because they'll be committed, but what they're requiring of us is communication. Mm-hmm. And what that builds is trust. And that's just a foundational aspect of how collectively middle managers, but also their teams as a unit, can move forward, which is huge. Well, I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and move on to that third strategy. So we got data, right? And then we have communicating transparently. And then we have this last strategy. This last strategy is all about how can we honor the humanity and dignity of our people teams with people-focused leadership. And so Keisha or Taylor, I'll leave it to one of you, whichever wants to take it first. but just what does that look like? How do we do it? And why is that a part of our playbook that we're talking about today for middle managers?
Do we need a rock, paper, scissors?
I'll jump in with some thoughts. So our idea here is to kind of help connect the dots between communicating using data, but also creating a sense of humanity across your team. And this would look like leading with empathy and even inclusion. Now, the empathy aspect, again, as we started with our conversation, could start with yourself and that self-awareness, but also your own self-awareness can help you connect with others and what team members might be experiencing with uncertainties and stress, but also what your executive leaders might be navigating with the changes coming down the pipeline. So with that, you might prioritize psychological safety. You might even consider the fairness of the decisions that are being made. And ultimately, this would require a sense of respect being demonstrated and executed across your team. Now, a second aspect of this would be building a culture of dignity. Now, by this, I would mean supporting your own well-being while also supporting the well-being of your team members, creating a sense of work-life balance. Yes, tasks need to be done. Yes, projects need to be completed for the sake of the entire organization. But the time spent outside of work is also what helps us manage our sense of stress and productivity too. And lastly, building a culture of dignity would also include building a sense of belonging with your team. And this would be another contributing factor to that communication piece. How are you sharing information and including the input of others in your decision making? But ultimately, these three components of building culture of dignity are all equally valuable for making sure that your team members feel heard and understood within the workplace and the changes that are being made. Keisha, would you add anything?
I mean, what else is there to add? I think you touched on everything. I think I would just kind of expand on the fact that your employees are more than just worker bees, right? Like you're recognizing their contributions. And in doing so, like as a data person, it's not a one size fits all. So my thought process is always data and culture for holistic, long-standing solutions, right? And oftentimes middle managers are tasked with, I need you to fix it, even though we knew about it 6 months ago, but I need you to fix it now. And it's like, okay, so you want me to quit right now. That's what you're asking me. But honestly, making sure that your employees are whatever goals that they have, that you are in alignment, right? Because your employees at some point are going to want to move up, move laterally, vertically, however, but they need to understand that you are there to support them. So while you are supporting them currently in their role, how are you actually helping them get to the next level? My supervisors always told me, you hire great people, you let them work and watch magic happen. However, if you're, micromanaging, constantly doing check-ins, constantly teamsing or slacking them, they're probably not going to be as productive. I mean, we're all adults here. This is how this works. And the last thing, like I said, taking those employee contributions and then connecting them to the strategic plans of the company, right? If the strategic plan involves like, hey, we are really all about innovation, that's going to be the word that's going to be around here. How are you helping them to innovate? How are you yourself working on your own innovation as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And, a couple of things come to mind here, but one thing I can't help but think about, but as we continue, as the years progress and as literally just demographically, we find that we're encountering more and more diverse populations that are entering the workforce, so too are changing the expectations that happen in the workforce. And so when we get down to really this aspect that Taylor and Keisha are talking about, really about leading with the person first and your leadership style as a middle management leader, it's really one of those either get on board or get get left behind because the demands of the employees of today are not the same as the demands of employees 50 years ago, 100 years ago, when you were advised to kind of leave anything personal at the door when you walked in the office. At this point and at this juncture, right, there's an expectation that not only, like Keisha said, am I a worker bee, but I'm expecting, for some semblance of you to demonstrate that you value who I am as a person and that my values are aligned with who we are as an organization. And as a middle manager, that your values at that point are aligned, right, and are being demonstrated, not just through your words, but also through your actions. Yes. And so there really is just this moment of, we have to stay attuned to, especially in meeting the needs of this moment in time, in times of uncertainty, that some of the aspect of uncertainty is negotiating that we are living amongst this time where there's the most amount of generations at once working in the workforce. But again, year after year, what we're seeing and what we see in data is that there's just this expectation to, yes, I must work. Yes, I am here to do a job, but I'm also expecting that there's value alignment there. And I'm also expecting that there's a leading of leadership through my personhood as well. And so that's really significant. And so if you look at the screen, this really is our playbook. And surely there's a lot more, and we had to condense it all. But if you look, we have these 3 strategies just to review that we went over, right? Leading with data, but the right data at that, communicating transparently to build trust, and then honoring the humanity and dignity with people first leadership. And all of these things are really what's going to take a middle management leader to the next step when it comes to how are we going to navigate times of uncertainty. There's a saying that says, the only thing constant about change is change itself. So whether it's this moment of time of uncertainty or one that's going to happen 2 months from now, we can't predict the future, but what we can predict is what these 3 strategies here on the screen, these are really going to help us to lend forward with leading with our best foot forward for our employees. And so now we actually wanted to give the opportunity to you all, right? So earlier we asked you to talk with a partner, and so we would certainly encourage, go back with that same partner or find someone new, introduce yourself first, and maybe talk a little bit about what kind of uncertainty you're seeing, but then also which one of these playbook offerings that really spoke to you, resonated, or could be useful at your place of work. And I'll leave it for you on this screen here. But we're just asking that you dialogue with a partner. We told you it's not just us talking, but dialogue with a partner. We'd really love for you to talk a little bit more about maybe that level of uncertainty you're seeing, what's happening right now for you, and then out of the 3 strategies we talked about, what resonated? What would be helpful for you in your place of work? So I'll give you all some time to go ahead and do that now. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and come back. If anyone wouldn't mind sharing, maybe if you wouldn't mind coming up to the microphone, but maybe what's one strategy that resonated with you, or maybe a little bit about some of your conversation. I know the mic is scary, but just in the name of accessibility, because we're recording and we want folks to be able to hear. But if anyone wouldn't mind sharing, maybe what's one? Tell us your name, and thank you, brave soul, for coming up.
Hello.
There you
My
go.
name is Dory Eversman. I live
Hi,
here
Dory.
in Austin. Thank
Hi,
you
Dory.
for coming up the highway for us today.
Of course.
Marcus and I talked about the need for communication, the second one.
Yeah.
And when you work for a company that doesn't share their plan or
Yeah.
their future, and all they're talking about is today's lunch or this week's projects,
Yeah.
there's a gap of information where team members fill in the gaps, and it's
Absolutely.
typically in a negative way that leads to
Yes.
insecurity.
Such a good point,
And
Dory.
So that's what we talked about.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Marcus, as well, for that partnership. Has anyone else in the room been in that scenario where maybe you're not really getting the pertinent information you're anticipating? And so if you're not telling me, there's certainly some narratives that are running the mill, right? There's some narratives that are forming amongst the workforce because we're not hearing. And that's certainly a dynamic. And so for middle managers, and I want to say for any manager in particularly, Dory was almost making the case for what happens if you don't take communication seriously, right? And like we said earlier, that communicating often and early, because if not early, right, then narratives get formed. That was a really great example. What did you want to say on that?
So I am very much some people will call it nosy. I call it investigative. I think investigative is a nicer word. But
Curious.
I go out of my way to find somebody in every room because I need to know. At least I know I have a specific contact in those areas, and they know that I am going to be a trustworthy person that's going to advocate for them as well. Because advocacy is what we do. That's why we deal with what we deal with.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to move us forward because I'm just looking at time, but thank you so much for us chatting through just even one of those strategies. And I hope throughout your conversations, you all were able to talk about maybe other of those strategies as well, because essentially, like we said, we have a short amount of time to really talk about all the things that middle managers need in these moments. And when we really think about focusing down for what that playbook could look like, those 3 strategies were really strong, salient, and for us even, they're stemming from our experiences with our clients. And so moving forward, I just want to ask our panel, as we wind down, but let's do a rapid fire. And so panelists, what's one piece of advice you would give a middle manager who is leading through uncertainty?
Well, I guess I'll go first since you went first last time. So using data as a shield and not a sword. So what that means is making sure that you are protecting your employees because you are going to be the advocate for them. And then also making sure that data is used as an enhancement and not a punishment.
That's a really great thought to leave with. For me, I would think around our third strategy, honoring human and people first leadership. I would suggest mastering your own emotional intelligence. We know that reading a room and reading your team also requires some sense of self-awareness of your own emotional capacity, what you're feeling from moment to moment, right, as news comes in, moment to moment. So you want to be aware of your own presence, your own energy, and your own stress levels because it influences your team more than you might realize. And that would be my final suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely. Know thyself before thy try to lead others.
Yes.
For sure. And since I asked the question, I'd love to throw one of those takeaways in as well. And it's something I heard Keisha say a bit earlier in this session, but something that also we find, and it kind of merges with this, the necessity and how data can be an asset, is really thinking about your strategic plan as an organization, your mission, and utilizing and leveraging that in times of uncertainty. More often than not, you don't have to throw spaghetti at the wall. You don't have to guess, because that strategic plan that probably went through numerous stakeholders reviewing and being approved is going to be that secret sauce when things go awry. And you remember what I said earlier? The only thing more constant than change is change itself. So change is going to happen, right? And so in those moments, relying on who we are and who we've already written those things out. Y'all have a mission. You have a value statement. You leverage those things and let it guide you forward. And so in those moments, we don't have to think about what our competitor is doing or what they're not doing, but really when it comes to how can we move and operate as mid-management leaders in this moment in time, we can rely on who we already know we are, our grounding frameworks and documents around our strategy, our mission, and our values. That's something we talk often with our clients about who approach us and say, hey, these executive orders are coming across our desk and they're causing confusion. What should we do? What does your strategy say? Or, hey, we have a number of layoffs that have happened and we're kind of unsure about who we are as a culture anymore. Well, what do your values say? And so that's something we constantly share with our clients. And so I would lead that as a lasting piece of advice as well. It's certainly pertinent to collect data and certainly pertinent to communicate often. But again, communicate what? How do we do it? Just rely on your strategy. It's there for you. It's an asset. And so really utilizing that as a living, breathing opportunity for you all. So as we go through some of those final takeaways, what I wanted to share with you all is some resources. And so like I shared, ADR Consulting Group, we are consultants, right? We're workplace culture consultants. And a lot of the language that you heard us speaking is actually indoctrinated into our mission and how we work and how our methodologies serve our clients. And that's really in thinking about how we leverage data, strategic planning, communication, and people-focused, people-first leadership to really demonstrate the intentionality around how we demonstrate our commitment to our people teams, while at the same time, we also have a responsibility of demonstrating how we're meeting business priorities. So a lot of the times we meet folks who say, at the C-suite level, we got to be concerned about the dollar and the bottom line, right? We're losing money or whatever is happening, and they don't always understand the case for employee retention. And that's what we're talking about here. How do we make sure we retain our employees and understand that that is a business priority? It's not a peripheral. It's not a in good times. It's not a, hey, it's on the news. It's not because we face pressure. it really is a business priority to think about how we can keep our employees retained. We talked about that one case study, right? Because if you don't, what could happen? Confusion's happening, productivity goes down, morale goes down, engagement goes down, right? We're seeing a lot of companies with these RTOs, requirements to return back to the office. If that's what you gotta do, that's what you gotta do. But how can we do it in a way that honors the humanity and dignity of our people? And that's what we continue to emphasize. And so just so you all know, we do that through a couple of ways. We have a couple of services. One is called Align. It's a really cool strategic planning program that we offer to our leaders. And so we put them through some training, we collect data, and then at the end, we lead them to a 2-day offsite retreat. And in that retreat, they develop their own roadmap for success on how they're gonna demonstrate their commitment to their people teams. So folks have a really fun time with that. We do a lot of executive coaching. So sometimes either on a one-on-one basis or in small groups, our middle management leaders and above, they really need to take stock and awareness of who they are as leaders, how their leadership styles are showing up, and how it's impacting others. And then we'll talk through some training concepts there. We have a lot of workshops that we offer that are customizable. So if you notice there are some skill sets that are missing on your teams, we want to help you fill in those gaps. And we'll do that in a developmental way where we're collecting data and training at the same time. And lastly, we do lots of pulse surveys and focus groups. What we've been talking about clients right now, urgently in this moment, as they don't understand what to do in the times of uncertainty, you gotta understand what the people are thinking. You gotta go to your workforce and understand what's on their mind and leverage them because they probably have some ideas on what would be best cases on how to move forward. So we'll do that for our clients too. And then lastly, you'll see we actually are in the development stage right now. Our captions are going over this part. But Quandary. So Quandary is a data platform that we're developing. It's a SaaS platform, software as a service that is launching this summer. And we're so excited. So if you look somewhere near you on your chairs, you might have gotten a little postcard. Take that with you. There's a QR code at the back because we want you all to get the most up-to-date updates. This is actually, we're launching this teaser video, and Sharif's gonna help me because I got a video to share with you and tell you more about how Quandary can help middle managers. Awesome. Thank you so much. So like I said, Quandary is the solution that's really meeting this need of this moment right now. Through lots of research and years of working with our clients, I've been in the change management space for over 15 years. And what we find time and time again is like those mid-management leaders that I mentioned may know that they need data, but not know how to collect it. So I don't know if this has been any of you or know what's the right data to collect, when should we collect it, what is information that we need, how do we help to make meaning of this in this moment, how do we connect this back to the needs of our CHRO or our CFRO or CFO who are asking us these questions. And so Quandary is gonna be a solution where it's gonna give you real-time accessible data via dashboard so you can log in at any time and find out the information that you need to communicate accordingly to your upper management, but then also to help you more effectively lead. At the same time, it's gonna also connect your strategic plan to really where you're at right now, and it's gonna have some generative reports that you can get on site in the moment so you can understand, again, the pulse of the organization. So as we launch that, and again, we wanna make sure you pick up those postcards because we're gonna have so many more updates, and that platform is launching this summer. We wanted to end with this. Middle managers really are the true architects of workplace culture, and equipping yourself with the right strategies, such as the one we named, will really help you to thrive no matter what comes next. And so that's the content piece of what we had to share with you all. But we wanted to ask if there were any questions and invite you all to come up to the podium. As you all think of if you're brave to ask a question, which I hope you are, I hope you also dropped your card in our raffle as you were walking into the room because we're gonna go ahead and pick a raffle soon as we get that Q&A. And Jordan, can we get those tickets up here and we can name our winners? We had some 40-ounce tumblers back there. We had some coffee mugs, some nice t-shirts. So we want to get that to you all. But as we do that, what questions are percolating for you all out there? And tell us your name, please.
Yeah, my name is Ryan.
Hi, Ryan.
I am a senior software engineering manager at a company in town here.
Perfect.
So whenever you're talking about middle managers being the true architects of workplace culture, and also, of course, transparency being so valuable in the workplace when communicating, how exactly would you recommend kind of architecting a culture, changing the culture to where transparency is more common? More specifically, right, like sometimes people hire, make decisions, don't necessarily share them with you. And so, you have to come to your team and basically be like, I'm in the same boat as you guys.
Yeah.
Is there a way as a middle manager that you can drive change, that you'd recommend driving change to where that is no longer the case in an organization?
Yeah, thanks so much for that question, Ryan. I can start. And this, literally, your question is something that we've heard from our other stakeholders as well, from some of the clients that we work with. And so I want to just make sure I understood the question, but how do you really facilitate that culture of communication and transparency if it hasn't always been there before, if it currently isn't happening, but you're aspiring to get to that place? Is that?
Yeah, and more specifically with respect to the people above you, not necessarily your reports.
Yeah, oh yeah, so that's like the variable, right? Because the C-suite executives above us, they have other priorities that maybe aren't necessarily always being communicated to us. And so what I would advise, and we've actually done this with some of our clients, but asking this question, I understand that maybe there are some things I cannot communicate right now, but what can I communicate? What can I share with my team? And of course, we shared a lot about the what we know research-wise about what data or what transparency and communication will do for our culture. But asking that very question, I understand there are some things I cannot share right now, but what can be shared? And even that, I feel like, opens up a channel of communication that maybe unlocks something that leader wasn't thinking, because a lot of the times there are things at that level that are beyond us as mid-managers that we're not privy to or we haven't been filled in on. And so I agree with you. It can kind of feel like, well, I'm right there with the rest of my employee team. I don't know either, right? But there, you still have an employee team who's looking to you as a middle manager, and then you're looking to your manager like, I don't know. So sometimes asking that question, if there are things that can't be communicated, I understand that, but what can I share? And really challenging a leader to go deeper there. Did y'all have any other?
So Ryan, this is why she's our fearless leader, because left up to me, I'm a professional troublemaker, and I'm going to find the root to the problem. And so what that means is I'm going to go directly to them and bringing the information that I'm aware of, which is going to be their strategic planning and then their mission statements and their values. If these three things are the items, right, because essentially they're check the box activities sometimes, if these are the things that you're asking me as a manager to uphold, value, and implement, by withholding specific information, again, not privy to everything, sure, but by withholding specific information, I'm not able to enact these things. And so it's really using the information that you have, the information that they have approved, and saying that if you're asking me to do X, Y, and Z, we're going to need A, B, and C. And this is how you build communication, transparency, and a collective effort. But again, professional troublemaker.
No, that's not troublemaking at all. Is that helpful, Ryan?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for asking. Thank you all so much. This was really wonderful. If you have questions, want to know more, we have some business cards on that back table. Come up and talk to us. Have a wonderful South by Southwest. So good to see you.
Take care.
Bye, y'all.